Hey everyone, Phoebe here. Today's episode we have the incredible Tamara Becher-Wilkinson, one of our writers for season 2. So excited for you guys to hear this conversation, but before we get into it, spoiler warning as always. This episode we will be talking about the entire first series and also spoiling, obviously, season 2 of Percy Jackson. So as long as you're caught up on those two things, you're safe. All right, enjoy the episode. And welcome to Monster Donut, a literary and historical deep dive into the Percy Jackson series and all of its following spin-offs. I'm Phoebe, a dramaturg and story consultant.
I'm Emily, a classics scholar-ish.
And today we are joined by the writer of episode 3 and 7 of season 2, Tamara Becher-Wilkinson. Hi, Tamara.
Hello.
Welcome. We are so thrilled to have you here.
I'm delighted to be here. I love what you guys do.
Thank you. Thank you for showing our favorite boat in the world so much love this season. The Luke of this season is so much fun to dig into. We, as we said before we started recording, are big Luke fans. And so the arc that you've constructed for him, getting to explore the culture on the Princess Andromeda, the inner workings of Luke's army, Luke himself, inner workings of Luke himself, it's just been such a joy to watch your episodes specifically this season.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I feel like I really lucked out in being assigned these 2 episodes because they really speak to each other, and not just because they're both on the cruise ship, but they really speak to this Annabeth Luke arc.
Yeah.
So great. And that's really setting up a lot for Thalia in the next season. And and I had a lot of fun working on it, digging into that stuff.
We will definitely be digging into the Luke and Annabeth of it all in these episodes.
Yeah, but just to start, I think, first, before we go there, I think my first question for you is, after seeing episode 7, I had the best time watching that episode. I loved it so much. And I also specifically loved it because I was sitting there like, how exciting is this as like a book reader to kind of know the point A and point B, or at least my best guess of the point B of like what's going to happen on my screen, but like very little about what's going to happen in between for the next 30 minutes. And to just like be able to enter with excitement as though I hadn't read the books. So I was just wondering like how you started with structuring an episode that you kind of knew ahead of time was going to diverge a lot from a book in a way that was going to give a lot, like a big playground almost.
Yeah, we really do have like a cool job ahead of us on this show. When we're first looking at these episodes, we kind of know from reading the books, there are these big tentpole things that we know are going to happen. And then it's a matter of how do we sort of seamlessly put them all together with the added material so that we have enough things happening to fill a 40-minute TV show and to make those things still feel like they came from Rick's brain. And I like that you categorized it as like a toy box because it's a lot of fun. And really the first things that I personally like to look at and think about are, the title of the show is Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And so I feel like everything needs to start and end with Percy and what is his drive for this episode? Where did we leave him at the end of the previous episode? And where does he need to be in his emotional arc in order to set him on his way for the next episode? And then, so through thinking about those 2 things, and those are things that, and our Craig Silverstein is very cool in kind of letting us take the lead on our episodes initially to sort of work this stuff out. And so some of us will even like put on the board, here's where he starts. I think everybody might do this, and here's where he ends. And then figuring out what obstacles we can put in his way to either help him or prevent him from, getting there. And then everybody else sort of has to reflect his journey.
Yeah. His journey in episode 7 specifically is very interesting to me because you start him off in such a like high, tense, emotional state being kind of cruel to Clarice, like we've talked about. We just talked to Dior like a couple hours ago, and we're talking about how much we want to bully Percy after what he did at the beginning of episode 7.
Yeah. Well, that's what's kind of cool about it too, is that Percy, you know, it goes back to like his fatal flaw of like he'll always put his heart before the mission, or his people before the mission, you know. And so knowing that Annabeth is in Luke's clutches, and potentially, even though he saw Luke put the fleece on her, he doesn't know what the plan is for Annabeth, you know, and he doesn't fully understand, like he didn't get to see the flashback in the previous episodes and what their relationship is and what they mean to each other. All he knows is that she's in the clutches of someone dangerous. And at the beginning of the episode, Clarice is really presenting as a barrier to that. And so what I love about this episode is that he gets to go on this arc where he kind of gets to accomplish both things, but knows in the end. And one of the things I love about Percy is he's not really interested at the end of the day in the glory, you know, that he understands what's driving Clarice, and that she's basically the main character of her own story, and that she needs that fleece to go on her way. And I also love, I mean, just going off on a tangent, like Clarice's story is so cool this season too. And I adore Dior. She's such a fantastic actress. And I love writing scenes for her.
Yeah.
She's incredible. My like top, besides Percy is my number one always, but my top two other than him are Luke and Clarice. And so like, yeah, hard agree. So I want to talk a little bit about these two episodes. You mentioned that, you know, you kind of lucked out by getting these two Princess Andromeda episodes. But we do also sort of know that these episodes are sort of assigned in the writer's room based on what might suit that person best, what chapters might suit that person best. So how did you end up with the Princess Andromeda episodes? Like, what about your writing style or your tendencies or your taste do you think makes you and these chapters a match?
You know, I mean, that's like a Craig question. You know, it definitely is not my experience of being on cruise ships. So I don't know. I mean, part of me wonders if I had to guess that I think he could tell that I had an affinity for the Clarice character. And so that maybe number 3 was given to me because it was going to have a strong Clarice arc, and we opened the show with her. And so maybe that's why. And then I think really 7 got assigned to me just because I was available to write it.
That it is luck. That is funny that you ended up with the 2 big Luke episodes, the 2 big Princess Andromeda episodes.
Yeah.
You say luck or fate.
Or fate.
You could say I luked out.
Oh.
God, I hate myself so much.
Okay, speaking of the man, the legend himself, Luke Castellan. These episodes, core to Luke and understanding him this season, his perspective, the journey he goes on throughout this season, you know, watching him go from like standing proud on the Princess Andromeda to on his knees in front of the coffin. Like, how did you find what the right through line was for Luke's arc to get him from point A to point B in these 2 episodes, since they do speak to each other so much?
You know, it wasn't easy just figuring out what this new flavor of Luke, or I shouldn't even say new flavor, but how Luke evolves into this is supposed to look like. And I think what ultimately sounded right and felt right was to not really think of Luke as a villain, and to think of him as someone who's coming from a place of this deep trauma, you know, and he sort of sees behind the veil of everything that's happening, like what the Olympians are really doing to these kids, and that he really does want a better way for all of them. And that, but somehow, you know, he's okay with the by any means necessary that it takes to get there. And I feel like what made sense was that, so I mean, even if you think back to like he's had this failed mission before season 1 even starts, you know, so he's had that is sort of weighing on him and everything that he does, and maybe even wanting to save face from that. And then everything with the lightning bolt, that doesn't work out so well for him. And so now this is really like his opportunity. Like he's been given a chance to really prove himself and his worth to the Titans, and to really like jam a thumb in his father's eye.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens again? He fails in episode 3 to get Percy over to their side, or Annabeth. But really Percy, because he really could use, one of the child of the eldest 3. And then at the end of this episode, he fails again. And on top of that, really pouring the salt into the wound is Annabeth essentially choosing Percy over him. Think about it that way. And so it's got like these really deep-seated hurts for him. And, Luke is someone who hasn't been treated with a ton of kindness in his life. And so he's sort of reverting to the things that have been modeled for him. And that's, violence and force.
It is striking how much also like he's still so it's like the way when I watch it, I see somebody who's like, especially in episode 3, but even like through 7, I think, in that conversation between him and Annabeth, where she's telling him about like the chance to bring back Thalia. Like you just see how he so believes in this cause that like he can't believe anyone would ever actually not join him almost. Like I think I laughed out loud at the line where he was just like, the kid's got heart. Talking about when he's talking about Percy gave him the fleece as though Percy did it for him.
Yeah. But that's how Kronos manipulates people, and tells Luke what he needs to tell him in order to get him to do what he needs him to do.
Yeah. And it is interesting as well, especially at the end of 7. Like, I think there's been a lot about faith in this season, especially with like Thalia brought into the mix. Like faith in others, faith in people, like, faith in like these sort of mythologized figures in many ways, and like faith in leaders, and like seeing like Luke's faith arc almost also get challenged there. It's like, what's the one thing that could bring him to his knees?
Oh, yeah.
So that to me was just such a delicious journey to watch. So first of all, I have to give you your props there. Absolutely amazing work. But I'm curious, like, how much of that came into your thought process with him there too?
Oh. Well, first of all, I think it's important to say that much of the TV writing is not a one-person job, that TV storylines and arcs and stuff are built by a team of really great, smart writers, And so it wasn't just my choice and my ideas that molded and shaped Luke's arc, or anything in my episodes, but, like our team of really great writers, everybody contributed to it. And at the helm of it is Craig Silverstein, who's the sort of the rudder of the ship to keep going with the whole ship analogy. But I think we definitely thought about Luke's psychology for sure, and getting him to have to bend the knee like this I think it was a powerful moment when seeing, Luke has been presenting as this very powerful figure this season, especially compared to Percy and his friends, and then having to see him like literally bend the knee in front of Kronos, and show and really like paint him into a corner and feel like he has to do something desperate in order to remain in Kronos's favor.
Especially after like, I feel like throughout the course of episode 7, we're watching a loss of power generally from him. Both because, like, Annabeth is, like, poking at something that's very vulnerable. And because, like, we're watching, like, Alison and the other rogue demigods, like, working kind of against him, working against his wishes, her kind of recruiting them just in case she needs to go up against Luke, and them all gladly following her.
Yeah, 100%. The mutiny happens because what makes Luke a sort of great, nuanced villain that is ultimately redeemable is that he does care about people, and it's this emotional trigger of Annabeth is what ultimately weakens him, and the other characters like Alison, who I love, they don't have that nuance. They just see the mission and what needs to be done, and they see their leader being weak, and they're all, just to be really reductive about it, they're all bullies. And when bullies sniff out weakness, they pounce.
Can we talk about Alison for a second?
Yes.
I need to talk about Alison. Alison, I love her so much. We love her so much. We love building out the army. We love getting to hear these stories. But Alison is such a specific personality. Like, she is so rageful and she doesn't listen to Luke and she just like pushes and pushes. And we've been talking a bit about like what we think makes Alison the right-hand man to put next to Luke, but I'm curious what you think makes Alison, like when you were crafting a character to be at Luke's side, what about this specific character makes her the best character story-wise for Luke to be like bouncing off of?
I think because she knows that in her mind, she doesn't serve Luke, that she serves Kronos, and she's beholden to Kronos. And so in her head, I think subconsciously, she has enough integrity it's funny to say integrity as a bad guy, but integrity as a bad guy to know that if Luke is acting in ways that are contrary to Kronos' mission, that she is obligated to do something about it, because she believes that much in the mission. She's a sort of diehard crony with a K.
She is.
Yeah.
Our number one crony.
Yeah. And so because she sort of lacks that emotional gooey center, she can be very resolute in her, unshakable in her point of view, whereas Luke has this hidden nuance to him that he can't say, but I love this person that's hurt and I need to keep the fleece on her.
And what I love about that is that like Alison can see that so clearly, and she tries to take it down every single time. Like the way she tries to drive that wedge constantly. It's just so fun to watch her looking and seeing Luke's weaknesses so clearly and trying to cut them out.
Yeah, and I think also like she sees opportunity there, like she would usurp Luke in 2 seconds if the opportunity.
Yeah, she would.
But I like to, there were scenes, I don't know if they were ever shot or not, but we had more scenes of like conversations, a conversation between Luke and her about keeping the fleece on Annabeth a bit longer, and him having to like say to her, like, because she has to remind him, we serve Kronos, we don't serve whatever it is you're doing here. And for Luke to be like, in the moment I am Kronos essentially, but for whatever reason, for time or just for flow, I love what wound up going to air, which is the show opens, or at the top of the show, she just goes in and yanks the thing off Annabeth and puts it on Kronos,
Yeah. And it leads to this really interesting moment where he like, I almost thought he was gonna try and argue with her in that scene, and then he just takes the fleece and does it. And I was so curious what was going on in his head in that moment, because to me it read as kind of going with what Alison says, going with what the army in front of him is asking of him, and knowing that he needs to take that role, at least right now, and then he can go downstairs and check on Annabeth and make sure that she's okay.
Yeah, I think he's smart enough to know that if he didn't let her take the fleece, that it was going to mean trouble, that he would have a mutiny on his hands, and he needed to make a good show of being a good leader. So
I'm going to ask this. I don't know if you can answer it, but one of the things that made me so curious too is the fact that it doesn't hurt her to talk to Kronos.
But hurts everyone else.
It hurts everyone else. I don't know if maybe that was just a performance decision, but to me it sort of underlined this thing of her like not having any like cognitive dissonance almost when speaking with him.
Being the number one crony.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think that totally tracks, that she's not conflicted. When he speaks to Percy, Percy is psychically resistant to Kronos. And I think that Luke, and let's just pretend we fully intended this, that Luke has this resistance that he is unaware of or suppressing psychologically, but that's why he's having the pain. But Alison is a willing participant. But it also could be, another way to sort of skin that cat is that Kronos can also probably decide who he's inflicting pain to and who he isn't, and that he has no need to inflict pain on Alison because he knows that she'll just, do whatever he tells her to do. Whereas with Luke, he maybe needs to have this show of like, I control you and I'm very dangerous. And, you may be the leader of my army right now because I don't have a body, but just know that I can end you anytime I want to. Like, don't get too big for your britches, boy, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the word Luke and body in the same sentence really just throws me every time. Okay, we've been circling the Luke and Annabeth relationship. I want to dive into it now. Because that is another dynamic that really rides on your episode specifically. The modern day dynamic between Luke and Annabeth really lives in these episodes, especially, which, I mean, it's huge because it's one of the things that we were really wishing after season 1 was to see more Luke and Annabeth scenes because their relationship is so core to the series. Mm-hmm. And so when you were writing these episodes, how did you find the right energy, the right back and forth for the two of them to have, and where to ground Luke and Annabeth both in 3 and in 7?
Yeah, well, it wasn't easy when we got to 7 because in 3 we knew what their conversations needed to be, which was this was basically Luke talking to his, for all intents and purposes, little sister to say, hey, you need to get on the right side of this war with me as your big brother, the two of us back together again, I'll protect you and everything will be great. But Annabeth, given her experience and being several years older, has her own mind now and thinks differently and sees the world differently than Luke does. And so when it came time for episode 7, he had already made that pitch to her, join me. And she had already said no. And so what became a little bit tricky to figure out was, well, what are they talking about now? Yeah, we had talked a lot about now it being Annabeth's turn to make a pitch to Luke and the thing that I love about Annabeth this season is that after hearing everything he had to say, including that he was willing to kill campers in order to achieve their goals, and it would have been so easy for Annabeth to write him off.
Yeah.
But she loves him so much and believes in him so much, and that she still sees in there this person who rescued her years ago when she was a little girl and protected her from all of these scary things in the world. And she knows that he's still in there, And so this is her saying, I haven't given up on you. And maybe you can't say it, but you're feeling like you have to keep walking down this road because you've risen to such high ranks within the organization. But she's kind of there to tell him, I'm still here for you. You're not alone on our side. Come back with me, essentially. And we had a lot of conversations about what this conversation would look like. Her even going so far as to make the pitch of I'll hide you. You can come back to camp. There's nothing you've done so far that's so unforgivable. And, and I can't remember if this is in the final episode or not, but another pitch of Thalia's coming back and the 3 of us will just hit the road again, and leave all of this behind. This doesn't have to be your fight anymore. It doesn't have to be our fight.
I wonder how Percy would feel about that one.
Yeah, I know.
It's also if that were still in the episode and then we got to we actually kept the conversation that we know they have later on when Luke goes to Annabeth and is like, please, I need to run away. Please help me. And she says no. Oh, ooh.
Yeah.
Can I ask how early in the conversation as well, the Annabeth bringing the idea of bringing Thalia back in episode 7, as opposed to in the books, that's sort of a twist at the end that's even possible. How early in these conversations was that part of this dynamic and this sort of interaction between them?
It was later, actually. Yeah, we played around with all different versions of how Luke finds out that that's a possibility. We played around with versions of he knew from the beginning, and other versions where Kronos tells him directly, and then ultimately landed on Annabeth being the one to tell him. And that, it gives him a little space to wonder, is she just manipulating him? But then also it gives him this great moment at the end where he has a conflict with Kronos and can say, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
And it's almost like a moment for him. She's given him this opportunity to really question the person that he's pledged loyalty to. the pitch that he gave to them in episode 3 is the Olympians lie to us and manipulate us. But over here on Team Kronos, we don't play like that. Only to discover now, like, you know what, they kind of do. But he makes a different choice, like his sort of fragile, and this is not a judgment, but his, fragile self can't deal with the fact that he's been manipulated and lied to. And so now he sort of has to, the confirmation bias sort of kicks in, and he has to double down on, no, I'm on the right side, and I'm willing to go so far as to try to kill Percy to prove it to you.
Yeah.
I loved ending on him saying, like, I'm loyal too, because that's Percy's fatal flaw. There are just so many little delicious moments of, like, the word choice that I just find so fun.
And I have to credit Craig Silverstein. He's such a good writer, smart writer. And, at the end of the day, he put those touches in that really just like make it, because he's such a big fan of things in general, that he really does such a good job of curating such a satisfying fan experience for people when we watch the show.
Speaking of also Thalia and that big moment in episode 8, I feel like part of your job in taking on episode 7 is like being the one to kind of tee that up, which is another reason why I absolutely loved that final scene between Luke and Kronos, because I loved introducing that moment of him, as I sort of mentioned, like kind of the doubts and the faith getting shaken in a way that we see actually a lot of characters also have this season. I think there's a lot of that. They're being tested. But,
yeah, absolutely.
Like kind of pulling that in. And also I really felt like 207 was a really beautiful synthesis of a lot of the themes that we've kind of seen peppered in throughout as well. But knowing that this is sort of like the penultimate moment, like how did you kind of approach 207?
Yeah, I mean, like my biggest concern in it was not letting it feel like just a rehash of 203, because it's literally like the same locations and scenes between the same people, So really just digging in on how everybody's in very different places than they were in the previous episode, and really making sure that the content of everything just feels like you didn't just watch the same episode again. I think what sort of helps too is, like 203 feels a bit lighter to me, and this episode is 207 much darker.
Yeah. I think the parallels between them like really serve them though, like it's almost watching like Luke pitching like what could possibly make Percy or Annabeth want to understand him, and then on the opposite side, like we've talked about, seeing what you could possibly pitch to Luke to make him consider your side. So it's a very effective little pairing that you've got going on.
And I feel like, Luke, the way that he's sort of taking it, he makes this pitch that Annabeth can tell herself, this is Kronos' pitch. It's not your pitch. But I feel like in actuality that Luke is really pitching his point of view. Mm-hmm. And the rejection that he feels from them in 203 is not just a rejection of Team Kronos, but it's a rejection of Luke. And that mentally, it's sad.
I know. I feel so sad for Luke all the time. He's the worst, but I feel for him so much.
Yeah, he's the worst, but he's, like all good villains. He's just, or like everybody, he's just this walking ball of fleshy trauma. And he's just sort of, it's manifesting in a really bad way. But he turns around eventually. Spoiler alert.
What?
It works out okay. I mean, sort of.
I mean, does it?
You know what? Yeah.
Okay. Returning to episode 3 for a moment, and also to Clarice, where we sort of started this episode. You created this very fun little parallel between Clarice and Luke as like ship captains, as leaders. Both as like people attempting to figure out like, how do I pitch myself to these people? How do I make these people listen to me? And it truly felt like a gift just for me, because those are my characters, as I've said. Right. So I guess, how did that parallel come about? Did that just like come naturally to you? Was it just a conversation in the room? Where did this come from?
Yeah, well, I think the story just sort of naturally lent itself to, basically we're watching the emergence of 3 leaders of the show, And so there was Clarice, you're seeing her trying to step into this role of leader. However, her army, basically her dad comes out and says, hey, be nice to my massive Nepo baby, please.
Yeah.
Doesn't set her up for success. But then you've got Percy, who, typically in season 1, Annabeth is kind of the leader of the crew, like she's the smartest and very good strategically. And so, in the episode, I feel like, Percy is trying to find his way through as the, not the leader of the group, but, trying to like learn to be and learning from Annabeth in a way. But then Luke, sort of juxtaposed against Clarice, he's already in this exalted position where he's respected by people and he has the ear of Kronos. And so they're almost like they are on inverse trajectories, because Clarice, as we see, very beautifully earns the respect of her crew to the point where they literally are willing to die for her, and they do. And then also when that does happen, you get to see that she really understands the full responsibility of leadership, which is having to make these decisions of, I need 6 guys to kill themselves, and realizing that wasn't an easy decision, and it weighs on her. Even though and what's kind of even more beautiful about that is that these guys are already dead, so it's not like that big a deal, but it is to her. And it really like pairs nicely with Luke, who is so easily like believes in his cause so much that the collateral damage is okay, that the ends justify the means, and having this new world order of the Titans is worth letting the people who don't believe in it fall. But we sort of see that he doesn't have the 100% conviction that he necessarily does. And he's sort of weakened by his attachment to Annabeth, that we start to see his downfall, and that the people that have been following him don't believe in him any much, and essentially start to mutiny a bit.
It sets us up so interestingly for season 3, because we know, like, at least in the book, Luke in book 2 is like so full of confidence. And then book 3, we've seen him sort of knocked down, and it's like, oh, what happened here? Like something has clearly happened here. And like, once you finish the series, you can sort of piece the pieces together and figure out sort of what happened there. But I love that we're getting to see some of that, like knocking him down on screen.
Yeah.
Knock men down on screen.
And to build women up at Clarice.
Right. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. That's why we, I mean, you guys know what's happening in season 3, and we get, not to spoil anything, but like the Hunters of Artemis are showing up. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Oh, I can't wait.
Thalia's back.
Thalia's back, guys.
Spoiler. Wait, should I? I don't know. You cut out whatever you want to cut out. But
no, we're a full spoilers podcast.
Okay.
We literally spoil all the way to like Trials of Apollo while we're talking about this show. So like,
wow, that's awesome.
Do whatever you like.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we've gotten the introduction of some other really fun lore elements in episode 7. Specifically, I'm thinking about like Charm Speak with Aiden.
Yeah.
You're also sort of the kind of, I maybe creator's the wrong word, but certainly the person putting the words into the mouths of some fun new characters that we love, Aiden and Mitch from Blockbuster.
Yes.
Mitch is so near and dear to my heart. It may be, I feel like I've peaked as a writer.
That's the peak of literature,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do that's better than that,
Can we talk about Aiden though? Because
I named him we have very close friends, family friends who live in England, who they were the ones that first introduced me to the Percy series, like years ago on a trip in Scotland. We were on a bus for 5 hours, and the eldest daughter talked my ear off for literally 5 hours going through all of the books.
Yep.
And so, the siblings also became fans. So when I had this there's not like a ton of opportunity to name characters on the show because so many of them just come from the books. But when I had this opportunity to name this male character, I chose Aiden because that was the name of their oldest son. on the show. But yeah, I mean, like
That's so fun.
And I love these like ancillary characters so much, like on anything I've ever worked on, that I really like take them too far. And I swear I could have written I could have written the Aiden spinoff, and I had like
scenes please
where he's like forcing them to, like forcing Tyson to like say a haiku. I don't know, but it's just like really goofy stuff. Like Tyson's the only one that doesn't realize he is under the charm speak. But yeah, so it kind of got pared down and more grounded, which was more tonally in line with the show. But yeah, I just kind of lucked out that I got to have this character that just sort of expands the scope of the world a tiny bit in terms of their powers.
It does open up some interesting potential for future seasons if like Luke has a charm speaker on his side. Not something we've ever explored in the books. So
yeah, I think we tried to, I can't remember if it's in the scene or not, but we tried to introduce some rule, which I again can't remember if it's in the book or not, but if you are aware that the person can use charm speak, it won't work on you.
It's sort of like I guess it's sort of like failing a charm spell in D&D. I don't know if you're a D&D person.
Yeah.
It's like that thing if you try to charm someone and it fails, they know. Actually, it's kind of the opposite of that now that I'm saying it out loud. Never mind. But
yeah. No, you know what? In D&D, I play purely like barbarians and folks who fight because I'm so intimidated by all the spells that there's so many and how to use them, and that I literally am just like, I'm gonna smash it with my mace.
I understand the Clarice of it.
Right.
She is sort of I guess she is sort of the barbarian archetype, right? In the party we've constructed.
The character I'm playing right now is a 7th level barbarian, and she's virtually unstoppable.
Oh, I love that. Oh my God, that's so much fun.
Yeah. No, I basically run into every mission before everybody else because like I can get hit with everything, and it's like flesh wound.
I'm the opposite. I usually play the like most finicky little like homebrew sorcerer type character, but I finally played a fighter for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is fun. I want them to hit me. You can try. Yeah. They won't be able to.
Okay, we are coming up on our hour, so we have one final question for you, which is a question that we ask at the end of every one of our episodes. We like to create our own bead, design our own end of summer bead based on whatever the episode was about. So if you were to design a bead for either all of season 2 or specifically your episodes of season 2, and it can't be the Golden Fleece like it is in the book, what would you put on your bead?
Oh man. I hate to be boring about it, but the first thing that pops to mind is a life preserver because I wrote both the cruise ship.
Oh, I go down with the ship.
Yeah.
Right, I go down with the ship. No, actually, can I ask this question?
Yeah.
I'm so curious, like, are you given, like, this is sort of the episode title that we want to use for this, because it's like the chapter titles, or do you sort of have to fit it into the box that is the chapter title? Do you write the episode and then think, okay, which chapter title can I sort of give this?
I think Craig ultimately decides which chapter title because, some of the episodes kind of cover a few of the chapters. And so he kind of picks the ones that fit the best and that are the most fun,
Yeah, no, I've very much enjoyed, especially with these episodes that are like so different from the chapters, figuring out like, watching I go down with the ship and being like, but that's the wrong ship. The Princess Andromeda doesn't go down yet.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in this episode? Like, it's so fun to be like, okay, but let's see who's going down. Oh, Percy got stabbed. I see.
Yeah. He goes down on the ship.
On the ship.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for answering that question.
Yeah, I had no problem.
A burning question that I've had. And for your lovely bead, and for being here with us today.
Yes, thank you so much.
I had a blast. I love how you guys think about the episodes, and you ask really great questions. And
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking me to be here.
Yeah.
Listen, we can only ask good questions because you've written such good episodes.
thank you all for listening to Monster Donut. Next time, another interview. We're going to be on this hopefully for a while, so I hope y'all have been enjoying. I'm so excited to keep picking people's brains, but eventually when we're all finished, we are going to be doing a wrap-up episode like usual. So if you have any of your own thoughts, feelings, questions, you can either comment them, reach out to us wherever you're listening to this podcast. You can also email us at monsterdonutpodcast@gmail.com. We love reading your guys' emails. We've gotten some great analysis in our inbox already, and I am so excited, especially now that everyone's seen the whole season, to keep it going, because I know we are nowhere near close to unpacking what we have witnessed. And yeah, you can also join the conversation on social media. We are at PJOPod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. You can also, on our social media, find our link tree, which has links to our merch shop if you want to pick up that Monster Donut merch. If you're also interested and in a position to do so, you can support us monetarily. I would have links for our coffee and Patreon as well. If you're not in a position to be able to support us monetarily, though, we would love if you leave us a rating or review or respond to the poll down below. Also on Patreon, we have been posting some bonus content. If you want a heads up on other people we're going to be bringing on to interview, and if you want to contribute any questions that you want us to ask, that's the place to do so.
There's also exclusive episodes over there. At this point, we'll have posted, hopefully, our set visit exclusive episode over there.
Monster Donut in a hotel room.
That's the series over there. If you're not part of the Patreon, you don't know this. That's like the title of the series is like live from the wherever we recorded it. The first one we recorded was when we were in London to see the Lightning Thief musical. The second one was Vancouver, but there have been like 8. So yeah, come join us over there if you feel so inclined. Speaking of which, thank you to all of our patrons. Latino Kaya, Patty VCK, Bethany from Public Works, Sydney Fox, Joke, Reina Avila Ramirez Arellano, Bronte Lebo, Ethan Not Nakamura, Kels, Mason Bowman, Casey Cassidy, Busy Cat, Natalia, Melissa Rounds, Cake Coffee, Sasha, Alana, Pamela Ion, The Kid on Her Own, Grace Hunker, Kaylee, Mana Munchian, Calamity, Eddie Burns, Sarah Brown, Colby Redfern, Theseus, May, Anna, Christina, Bad Luck, B, Faster, Austin Savat, James Alexander, and Sloan Mitchell. We appreciate you all very much.
Thank you.
Can't wait to dive deeper and deeper into this season with you all. Bye.
Ever walk past a place for rent and wish you could just take a peek inside? Maybe even explore the layout, envision the natural light streaming through the windows, or plan where your vinyl record collection would go. At Apartments.com, you can. With tools like their 3D virtual tours, you can see the exact unit you could be living in. Really envision yourself in your new home with Apartments.com, the place to find a place.